Vice President Pence and candidate, it's so great to be with you here in this beautiful setting. Thank you. Thank you for making time.
Thank you, Montse. It's wonderful to be with EWTN and also at the Napa Institute. So many great Americans, a deep conviction in their Catholic faith.
Absolutely.
Love this country, and it's a joy to be here.
Well, let me ask you about that Catholic faith. That's the elephant in the room here. You were raised Catholic. You know the truth and the beauty of the church, and yet you were led away. Tell us about that.
Well, I was just led away from faith. And by the time I was in latter years of high school, I lost interest in religion. I was raised in a wonderful Catholic family. My father was a devout man of the church. My mother, who's 91 years young.
That's nice.
Still goes to Mass several times a week. But for me, it was just walking away from faith itself. And it wouldn't be until I would be off at college and begin to reflect on what that Catholic Christian upbringing had given me, what my faith required of me, that I came to a personal faith. And while our journey has taken us elsewhere on Sunday mornings, I tell you, I love to attend Mass with my mother. And,
that's beautiful.
I cherish my Catholic upbringing and that great Catholic education that I got.
That's good. Well, Catholic education is really important. We'll get to that in a second.
You bet.
But you've seen a lot of anti-Catholic bigotry. You were Kennedy Catholics. You know what that feels like.
Sure.
Are you worried about what's going on in the FBI?
Well, I'm worried about what's going on at the Justice Department, frankly. I've made it clear that if I'm elected President of the United States, we're going to clean house on the whole top floor of the Justice Department. Not just a new Attorney General, a new Director of the FBI, but also all the people that serve around them. I mean, to see what many Americans believe has been the unequal treatment under the law, but worse still, targeting pro-life Catholics in this country, people of deep conviction and faith. Actually, have circulated a memorandum to even reflect on that. I think it says to me that something has gone awry at the highest levels. Truth is, most of the men and women that go to work every day at the FBI and in the Justice Department are good, decent Americans. Many of them are people of faith, love their families and love this country, but the leadership has lost its way. And as president, I know we can pull together a group of men and women that have respect on every side of American politics, men and women of integrity who will restore confidence in the Justice Department.
Well, you talk about American faith and faith being critical. Your wife has just published a book that's coming out in September on that role of God and country in service. Why do you think that's so essential, and do you think it's a requirement to serve, to have a belief in God?
Well, look, when the Pilgrims stepped off onto Plymouth Rock, they came here for one reason, and that was for the freedom of religion. They'd met Christian persecution in their own home country, and so that's why we call the freedom of religion our first freedom. And so while there can never be any religious test for public service in America, as Karen wrote her recent book and as I wrote my autobiography last fall, So Help Me God, for us, our faith has strengthened us, it's informed us, and in a nation that was founded on the belief that we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, I think it's uniquely equipped us to lead in the Congress and as governor, as vice president, and I hope someday as President of the United States.
Well, you talk about the core values of the Republican Party, and a lot of Catholics, they feel like they don't fit into either party. Can you articulate for us, what are those core values today, the ones that matter to you?
I think first, strong national defense, and a willingness for America to be a leader in the world. Look, if we're not leading the free world isn't being led. That's why I've been such a strong voice for giving the Ukrainian military what they need to repel that Russian invasion and to stand strong against China's provocations in the Asia Pacific. But beyond that, I also believe our party is about fiscal responsibility and reform. And frankly, your generation and your children are going to face a debt crisis, the likes of which we've never seen. I think Republicans are the party that should be restoring balanced budgets and bringing reforms to put our nation on a solid fiscal foundation. And ultimately, our most important values are our commitment to the right to life, to religious liberty, to traditional values, to traditional marriage. And as long as I'm a candidate, and frankly the rest of my life, I'll always be a champion of those values that were exactly the values that drew me to the Republican Party to begin with. A little secret for you, I was actually a Democrat.
Oh yes, I've read about
When
that.
I was
You're a
growing
Kennedy
up.
Democrat.
I was a Kennedy Democrat, but I'll tell you, when I heard the voice of Ronald Reagan and I heard that commitment to a strong defense, limited federal government, traditional moral values, I joined the Reagan Revolution and never looked back.
Well, how do you then, talking about life issues that are so important, how do you then square the protection of life and what comes post-Roe and the needs of women and children and families with that limited government perspective? We have a government that's much bigger now. Can we actually find a happy medium there that supports women and children and at the same time gives us and the family a primary role?
Montse, I think you put your finger right on. I think the way we make progress in the cause of life in America is by standing on principle for the unborn, but also marrying that with a commitment to compassion for women who've been through abortions over the last 50 years and for women that are in crisis pregnancies today. I truly do believe, when I think of the example of our Savior, it was an unwavering expression of truth combined with deep and healing compassion for people. And I believe that's that he who we follow should be he who we emulate in this cause, because I think that's how we win hearts and minds in America. I mean, I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. I want to see us restore the sanctity of life to the center of American law in every state in America. But I understand that we've got to win hearts and minds, and I believe the way that we do that is by standing without apology for life, but also in an increasing way coming alongside women who are facing crisis pregnancies and demonstrating our commitment is as strong for newborns as it is for the unborn. And states around the country are doing that. The state of Texas passed strong pro-life protections a year ago after the Dobbs decision and married that with $100 million in new support for women in crisis pregnancies and newborn care. That's the way forward, and that's how we make progress for life in America.
At the state level, but at the federal level, is there a limit that you're going to pursue?
Well, look, I believe that when the Supreme Court sent Roe versus Wade to the ash heap of history, they returned the question of abortion to the states and to the American people. And while I'll always be a champion for advancing the cause of life as far as we can, I mean, I'd like the day to come that abortion is not only illegal, but it's unthinkable. I'll advance the cause of life in every state in the country. I do think the time has come for a minimum national standard. I mean, right now, America's laws on abortion in half of our states has more in common with the way China and North Korea and Iran deal with abortion, and that is abortion on demand all the way up to the moment of birth. We can do better than that, and by creating a minimum national standard that bans abortion after 15 weeks, I think we'll save tens of thousands of innocent lives. And then we can work every day to continue to advance the cause of life
for a national ban.
Each state across the country.
Well, another issue of life that's a prudential issue for Catholics is immigration. And under the Trump administration, you were part of what was going to be a compromise, helping DACA individuals have a path forward. Is that something that you'll be pursuing?
Well, thank you for knowing about that. It was look, we were working to get the funding to build a wall. You know, I come from Indiana, big farm country, and we have an old saying, that good fences make good neighbors. And we built hundreds of miles of border wall. We reduced illegal immigration at the southern border by some 90% through the Remain in Mexico policy and others. But one of the things people miss is that under our administration, we actually offered a solution on Dreamers. I mean, literally.
For the 11 million people who are already here.
Well, but for people that were brought here as children through no fault of their own, we offered to make it possible for those children, many of whom are adults, many of whom have gone on to great careers and also service in the military of the United States. We said to Democrats in the Congress back at the end of 2018, if you give us the funding for the wall, we'll solve the issue of Dreamers. Now, the larger issues of the 11 million who are here, I think is going to take a longer period of time for us to resolve. But I think if we can secure our border, if we can resolve some of these issues with principle and compassion, I think the next president of the United States will have an opportunity to fix a broken immigration system once and for all. You wouldn't necessarily know it from my last name, but my grandfather immigrated to this country from Ireland. He got off a boat in 1923. Richard Michael Cawley is how Michael Richard Pence got to be Vice President of the United States. This is the nation where dreams come true, and that immigration system is broken today. We can fix it, we can repair it, and after we do all of that, then we can look for opportunities to resolve some of these long-term intractable problems as well.
Well, it's certainly a nation where my dreams have come true. You talked about Ukraine early on. Ukraine was something that came up in an interview where you said something that I think is good for you to clear up. It's not our concern, but it is our concern. You just said it is. Tell me a little more about how you feel about Ukraine and Russia in general.
Sure. We used to have an old term for that. It was called fake news. The internet ended up using a spliced version of an answer, but we addressed it fairly quickly. Look, what I believe it's in the national interest of America for us to support the Ukrainian military for one reason, and that is, as a father of a captain in the Marine Corps, father-in-law of a lieutenant in the Navy, I have no doubt if Vladimir Putin overruns Ukraine, it's not going to be long before he crosses a border where our men and women in uniform are going to have to go fight him under NATO's Article 5 treaty. And so I believe it's absolutely essential. We're the leader of the free world. We're the arsenal of democracy. Now, there are voices within our party, including other candidates for president, who have called it a territorial dispute, who have suggested that America does not have an interest there. I strongly disagree. As I said before, if America's not leading the free world's not being led. And I don't want to live in a world where China and Russia are setting the rules on the global stage. I want freedom to set the rules on the global stage. And I made that very clear in that interview. And my first priority is the people and the security of the United States of America. I believe it's in our interest, in our security interest, for us to support the Ukrainians as they make the fight against a Russian invasion.
Now, Mr. Pence, I get one more question, and I want to ask you, you're a proven leader. You are a tested leader with what happened in January 6th, but you're trailing in the polls. You're at 5%. Why is that? What are Americans not seeing?
Well, I would say we just announced a little while ago. So give us a little time.
Do you have a pollster now?
Yeah. No, I don't even have a pollster. I will tell you, one of the things I've realized since we moved home to Indiana after leaving the White House is Karen and I, we're well known, but I don't think we're known well. I mean, most Americans know me as a loyal vice president standing beside the president in the most pro-life administration in history, an administration that rebuilt our military, revived our economy, and I couldn't be more proud of that. But as people get to know us on the campaign trail in places like Iowa and New Hampshire, I'm always delighted when I hear that people come up and say, I didn't know you were a governor who cut taxes and balanced budgets and created record employment. I didn't know you were a leader in the Congress of the United States, battling the big spenders of your own party and standing for the right to life. So for 20 years, Karen and I had the opportunity to serve, and the chance to say to people that the reason we're running is because we've been blessed with a career of service that I believe has made us the most qualified person in this race to be the next president of the United States. I believe to whom much is given, much will be required. We've been given much. And for all the challenges that we're facing, the failed policies of the Biden administration, I mean, Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. We felt an obligation to step forward, and I'm confident as we deliver that message, you'll be seeing a whole lot more of the Pences.
Well, that sounds great. We're looking forward to seeing you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.